we get experimental. SciAnts. We're curious, non-judgmental.
Hummingbirds are freaking nuts, so I don't think we can go wrong with the hummingbird story.
Hummingbirds are a little bit nuts. So there's this mystery in hummingbird flight. I was not aware that there had been this mystery of hummingbird flight. And the question of it was, how do they fly sideways?
Horrible little buggers, that's for sure.
Yes, but so it apparently was totally unknown. What the researchers did was they changed the size of the opening, these little slits in the, like this paper thin material, right, to see how the hummingbirds would fly through a particular opening. And what they ended up looking at is first, it was just wide enough for them to just fly through regular head forward.
Yeah.
They can get through it no problem. If they then shrink down the opening such that the animal can only fit through sideways, one of two behaviors can occur. First one is it turns to the side and it beats its wings in a constant manner so that it maintains height and goes through sideways. If it has gone through that opening before, it dive bombs. It shoots through, it pulls its wings in, ends up through the other side, and then starts flapping again.
Alright, so tell me about this hovering / dive bombing.
So let's look at a little bit more about hummingbirds, and then we can look at the figures and what they end up looking like. Hey. Fortunately, in the paper, they didn't have the videos of them doing the dive bombing. They just had the images.
Yeah.
But I'll show you all the images in the paper of them doing this dive bombing. So there's a neat amount of learning and memory that's built into this study because they suggest that the birds, once they figure it out and recognize an area, if they can't fit through it, they just fly really fast, pull in their wings, go through, and then shoot their wings back out.
Because they recognize it. They know what's up. They know what's on the other side.
Yeah,
right?
It's just cool. Like, there's that learning and memory component. And actually, y'all can do this in a pool. That's actually, that was one of the ways we taught the breaststroke, is if you cup your hands and you go back and forth in that figure 8 with a down push, you'll actually stay floating in one position and you don't go up. You stay stable. It's not like when you have to kick your feet and there's like the bouncing up and down, or if you're like splashing, but if you just do this back and forth motion, you'll stay floating. And it's something where if you're also stuck in like the middle of the ocean or somewhere, like a large body of water, and you need help, it's low energy and you can stay floating. And if you go fast enough, you can make a whirlpool.
A lot of you probably already know this, but the reason they have to go into torpor, I mean, I think they touched on it, but the hummingbird needs to be eating pretty much constantly, but I think, every 15 minutes it needs to have a sugar meal. And it gets cold at night, first of all. There are lots of reasons for neurobiology and other reasons why rest is good, right? For your organs. And also, the flowers lots of flowers close up during the night. And so there's just not those sugar meals available. So they actually have to go into quasi-hibernation because these little guys cannot survive if they're not eating every 15 minutes. I've had days where I feel like that, but still. And so that's pretty amazing in itself. But then the danger is they're in this quasi-hibernation. They're in torpor. It takes a couple minutes to wake up. It can take as long as a half an hour, depending on how deep it is. And so those little guys, if all of a sudden there's a predator around, that is a slow wake up, okay? That is they're just kind of stuck there as their body is regaining its function, because it gets to the point where they don't even really have muscle control. They're in such a deep hibernation. Anyway, you guys, a lot of you probably knew that, but thought I'd throw it in there. Hummingbirds are freaking ridiculous. And it's extraordinary. It's the startle response. The poor little hummingbird. If that little hummingbird oversleeps, too bad, man. Still, 30,
it's dead.
30 minutes.
Jesus.
That's not where I was going. I was just going to say it gets a late slip or something. But
So this is the big crux of the paper, right? I've already given it away a couple of times, but these are the two different types of flight that these animals have. So if they're going through an opening that they have to turn to the side, they just keep flapping in that hovering position and they go into the side. And then there's also this dive bomb approach. So these A and B, this is like the sideways look of if they're going through the little wall.
yeah.
So they're just flapping their wings.
So when you say sideways, you just mean they're just like literally I'm head on, and then they just
it's like shuffle through.
They shuffle.
I know it's a weird study, but I thought it was
weird,
cool.
But I like it. I'm here for it.
And then this was the one where if you've already trained them about the area and they've already they know what's through, this is that dive bomb.
They just go for it.
So see, they're flying the flight wing. They come back.
They tuck their little arms in.
And this is that like stop. Does it regularly come up in nature, darting through gaps? It might, Tommy.
I mean, it must. They're small little creatures that evolved in dense rainforests. So I can see lots of instances where they'd need to zip around, get to a good flower.
The science news of the week in this paper is looking at how hummingbirds fly through openings that they can't fit through head on. And we're hypothesizing this probably happens a fair bit in the wild. And the question from Tommy was, well, how did the experiment actually come up? Like, where was the idea from? And I liked Lita's explanation, like it presumably evolved a law that happened in nature, you know, through jungles. So Morgana, my understanding is that they're in more tropical climates without harsh winters.
Excuse me, sir. We had hummingbirds up in the White Mountains
We
in
do
New
have.
Hampshire.
Oh, then I have no idea.
They migrate.
Okay, that'll fix
They
it.
migrate. So the migration of the hummingbirds is freaking extraordinary. They're tiny little stinkers. How can they travel so far? I don't know what to tell you, but they're really, really good at it. And they all collect at the edge of Florida. There are these couple of towns that have these massive hummingbird festivals that I desperately want to go to. And everybody in the town puts out, like every single house puts out like 10 or 20 hummingbird feeders, because all of the hummingbirds like amass and then fly out across the Gulf, I think it is, together. And they need so much energy that there are these little groups in these towns that actually go around and like help refill like every couple of hours people's hummingbird feeders. It's like it's
cool.
a huge event that lasts for like a week or so. And there's so many hummingbirds that fly on this migration that leave these like couple of towns in Florida that they can track the hummingbirds using weather equipment.
No.
Yeah, that's how they figure it out. Because the hummingbirds, they're too small. You can't put tracking devices on them. But the giant plumes of hummingbirds, they can track moving across the water with like weather tracking.